I've been dropped into the middle of some trashy power fantasy novel, reincarnated as the disposable villain who doesn't even make it past chapter 3, the heir to a top-tier fortune. In the original story, I was supposed to get into a war with the protagonist over some waitress with a victim complex, a fight that would end with my family ruined and me dead. I was supposed to ignore my stunningly beautiful and brilliant fiancée, a corporate queen in her own right, to become the female lead's pathetic lapdog. I was supposed to be stabbed in the back by my most trusted friend, only to ask with my dying breath, "Why did you betray me?" Did the author donate their brain to science before writing this garbage? A story that twisted reality this much? Whoever wants to be that chump can have the part. I'm out. Instead, I turned right around and wrapped my arms around my gorgeous, formidable CEO fiancée. But the second I decided to check out of the drama, the hero and heroine both lost their minds. The hero cornered me. "Why aren't you fighting me for her anymore? Do you look down on me?" The heroine looked at me, tears welling in her eyes. "You were never like this before. Is she forcing you to do this?" I just stared at them. "Seriously? You people need therapy. Just keep me out of it. Why aren't you fighting me for her anymore?" Lucas Vance, the golden boy of this story, had me pinned against the wall, his eyes bloodshot. His handsome face was a mask of fury, as if I'd committed some unforgivable crime. "Do you look down on me?" I cleaned out my ear, sure I was hearing things. "Lucas, my man, I think you got the wrong guy," I said. "Chloe is over there. Your leading lady. Shouldn't you be comforting her instead of having a meltdown in my face?" I pointed a thumb over my shoulder to where Chloe Sullivan was watching us, doing her best impression of a wilting flower. The soft lighting of the restaurant made her look delicate and pitiful. It was an effective look. The original Ethan had been completely snowed by it, right up until it cost him everything. Too bad for her. The guy standing here now was me, a regular person who was much more interested in making money than making a scene. Lucas's breath hitched. He clearly hadn't expected this reaction. According to the script, I was supposed to be losing my temper right now, pointing a finger in his face and screaming at him for punching above his weight, starting a brawl over Chloe. "Ethan, you were never like this," Chloe said, seeing Lucas falter. She drifted toward us with that signature gait of hers, the one that screamed innocent victim. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her voice trembling just so. "You used to be the first one to stand up and protect me whenever I was hurt." Her eyes flicked venomously toward the woman who was watching the whole spectacle over the rim of a wine glass. My fiancée, Ava Sterling. She was wearing a custom crimson gown, her lips a matching shade of red, looking like a masterpiece of oil on canvas. She was the real queen of this story. Family, looks, business acumen. She outclassed Chloe so completely it wasn't even a contest. The fact that the original Ethan ignored a woman like this to simp for a manipulative waitress was proof positive his brain was just for decoration. I looked at Chloe's fake, "I'm only saying this for your own good" expression and almost laughed out loud. Forcing me? I took a step forward, closing the distance to Ava, and slid my arm around her slender waist. It was so natural it felt rehearsed. She stiffened, her icy gaze flicking to me with a clear warning. I ignored it, leaning down to whisper in her ear with a low chuckle. "Honey, she thinks you're forcing me." Ava's brow furrowed, but to my surprise, she didn't push me away. I turned back to Lucas and Chloe, a wide smile spreading across my face. "First, a correction. She and I are equal business partners. There's no forcing involved." "Second, Ms. Sullivan," I said, putting a little extra emphasis on her name. "I used to be blind, mistaking cheap glass for diamonds. But I've had my eyes checked. My vision is crystal clear now, and I could see exactly who is worth my time." Then I looked at Lucas. "As for you, if you and Ms. Sullivan want to play out some epic romance, go for it. Knock yourselves out. Just do me a favor and leave me out of your little drama. I'm busy making money. I don't have time to play games." With that, I turned, my arm still around Ava, and started to walk away. "Wait!" Lucas yelled, his voice laced with disbelief. "Ethan, don't you regret this? Chloe is the best girl in the world. Losing her will be the biggest mistake of your life." I didn't even turn around. I just tossed a line over my shoulder that was designed to make him choke. "Oh well, good for you then. Congratulations on finding a treasure." I paused at the door. "Just make sure you lock that down tight so she doesn't get out and ruin anyone else." Behind us, I could hear Lucas's enraged shouting and Chloe's muffled sobs. Beside me, Ava was silent. It wasn't until we were outside, the cool night air catching in her hair, that she finally turned to me. Her beautiful, almond-shaped eyes were filled with a probing, analytical curiosity. "Ethan," she said, "you're very different tonight." "Different how?" I asked, sliding the hand from her waist and stuffing it into my pocket, affecting a casual slouch. Ava's gaze remained sharp. "The old you followed Chloe Sullivan around like a dog follows a bone." Her words were harsh, but they were true. "The new you, it's like you're a completely different person." I let out a soft laugh, meeting her eyes without flinching. Maybe it was a near-death experience. Clear as the head, you know. Her pupils contracted almost imperceptibly. The death I was referring to was the original character's grim fate in the novel, but she wouldn't know that. To her, it must have sounded like something else entirely. "Ava, let's make a deal," I said, deciding to cut to the chase. "This engagement between us is nothing more than a merger of family interests. You're not interested in me, and I have no interest in playing the part of a loving husband. But we don't have to be enemies, do we?" She raised an eyebrow, signaling me to continue. "Business is war. It's better to have one more ally than one more enemy. You control Sterling Industries, and I'm about to take over the Rhodes Corporation. If our families join forces, a true partnership, the value we could create would be far greater than if we call off this engagement and go our separate ways." As for Chloe and Lucas, I scoffed. "They're just sideshow clowns. Not even worth mentioning." I looked at her, my expression sincere. "I promise I will never again cause you any trouble over anyone who doesn't matter. I will be the most reliable business partner you've ever had." Ava was quiet for a long time, studying my face, weighing the truth in my words. Finally, she spoke. "Talk is cheap," she said. "I need to see some proof of your good faith." I smiled. "Of course." I pulled a folder from the inside pocket of my jacket and handed it to her. "This is a development proposal I've been working on for the South Brooklyn waterfront project. As I understand it, both Sterling and Vance Corp are fighting for that contract." Ava took the folder, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. The South Brooklyn project was the biggest deal in New York for the second half of the year. Whoever landed, it would dominate the city's future development for a decade. She opened it. The more she read, the brighter her eyes became. My proposal didn't just contain detailed market analysis and risk assessments. It also laid out a bold vision for integrating the commercial district with a new high-tech industrial park. This was absolutely not something the brainless fool Ethan Rhodes could have produced. "This plan is perfect," she said, closing the folder and looking at me with a new light in her eyes. "But the Vance family has already greased palms at the deputy mayor's office. It'll be difficult for us to win the bid." "Who said we're going to fight them head on?" I gave her a mysterious smile. "Lucas Vance is arrogant. He thinks he's the main character in a movie and that the world revolves around him. His biggest weakness is his own ego. He thinks that just because he has a contact in the mayor's office, the deal is locked. What he doesn't know is that the real decision-maker is the low-profile head of the City Planning Commission. And what's more, my sources tell me that Vance Corp is so over-leveraged trying to secure this project that they've already illegally diverted funds from their overseas division to cover it." Ava's expression changed completely. She was looking at me like she'd never seen me before. "How do you know all this?" "Trade secret," I said with a wink. "So, do you believe in my sincerity now, Ms. Sterling?" Ava gave me one last long look. Then she extended her hand. "Pleasure doing business with you." "The pleasure is all mine," I said, taking her hand. Her skin was even softer than I'd imagined. And just like that, a business alliance that would shatter the novel's original plot was forged. As for the hero and heroine, still wrapped up in their ridiculous, manufactured romance, they were about to become stepping stones on our path to doubling our net worth. The very next day, my most trusted friend, Caleb Mitchell, showed up at my office. He burst in, his face a mask of anguish. "Ethan, I heard what happened yesterday. You humiliated Chloe in public. All for Ava Sterling?" he exclaimed. "Are you out of your mind? You know what Ava is. She's a heartless business machine. Chloe is so sweet and innocent. How could you do that to her?" I leaned back in my executive chair, spinning a pen between my fingers, and watched his Oscar-worthy performance. I almost applauded. This was the guy. In the book, Caleb acted as the original Ethan's best friend, giving him all sorts of terrible advice on how to win over Chloe and piss off Lucas. All the while, he was secretly feeding corporate secrets to Lucas. In the end, he helped Lucas drive the final nail into Ethan's coffin. Right before he died, the poor idiot was still asking him, "Why did you betray me?" Thinking about it now, it was laughably pathetic. "Caleb," I said, stopping the pen. My voice went cold. "Are you my friend, or are you Chloe's?" He froze, clearly not expecting that question. I'm your friend, of course. I'm just worried about you." "Worried about me?" I let out a dry laugh. "Worried about me? So you encourage me to dump my powerful, brilliant fiancée for a waitress who brings nothing to the table but tears? Worried about me? So you watch me walk into a war with Lucas Vance and keep throwing gasoline on the fire?" Caleb's face paled. "Ethan, how can you talk about Chloe like that? And Lucas, Enough," I said, tired of his act. "I'm done with Chloe Sullivan. Don't mention her name in front of me again. As for Lucas, he could do whatever he wants. I don't care." I stood up, walked over, and clapped him on the shoulder. "Caleb, you're my only real friend. The only one I trust." The original Ethan used to say that to him all the time. Coming from my mouth now, it had a different, sharper edge. I felt him flinch, but he recovered quickly, forcing a smile that looked more painful than a grimace. "Ethan, I'm just glad you've come to your senses." "All right," he said, as if suddenly remembering something. "How are things going with the South Brooklyn project? I heard Vance Corp is going all in. My dad has a friend on the planning commission. Maybe he could help." There it was. The fox was showing its tail. I hid my smirk, keeping my expression neutral. "Really? That would be great. I've been stuck on this proposal. I drafted something, but it just feels like it's missing something." I turned, opened a drawer, and pulled out a folder, handing it to him. "Take a look at this for me, will you? Let me know what you think." This was the fake proposal, prepared especially for him. 90% of it was legitimate. 10% of it was a lie. And that 10% was a poison pill, just big enough to make Lucas Vance stumble and fall hard. Caleb took the folder, a greedy light flashing in his eyes. "No problem, man. I'll definitely give you my best advice." He left, clutching the folder like it was a winning lottery ticket. Watching him go, the smile I'd been hiding finally spread across my face. The fish had taken the bait. That afternoon, Ava called. "Vance Corp just doubled down on their investment for the South Brooklyn bid," she said, her voice unreadable. "It looks like they're trying to price us out of the competition completely." I know," I said calmly, taking a sip of my coffee. "You don't seem worried at all." "Why should I be?" I countered. "The show is just getting started." After hanging up, I dialed another number. "Commissioner Thompson? Ethan Rhodes here. I have a new idea regarding the South Brooklyn project I'd like to present to you in person." A steady, deep voice came from the other end. "Of course. My office is always open." On the day of the bidding for the South Brooklyn project, the tension in the conference room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Lucas Vance sat across from me, his expression smug, his eyes practically screaming with challenge. Next to him, Caleb kept his head down, refusing to meet my gaze, the picture of guilt. Chloe was there too, dressed to look especially pure and innocent. She sat beside Lucas, periodically glancing my way with a look that said, "Don't you regret it now?" I couldn't be bothered with them. My attention was on Ava and the occasional, knowing look we exchanged. The bidding began. Vance Corp went first. Sure enough, their presentation was a souped-up version of the fake proposal I'd given Caleb. It was flashy, impressive, and utterly hollow. To achieve the grandiose vision they laid out, they would have to invest an astronomical sum of money. It was a massive, reckless gamble. When Lucas finished, he stared at me, looking like he'd already won. Then it was our turn. Ava walked to the podium. She wasted no time on fluff, cutting straight to the point. The proposal she presented was practical, stable, and perfectly aligned with the long-term urban development strategy Commissioner Thompson had previously outlined. And the best part? Our budget was half of what Vance Corp had proposed. We were going to do a better job for half the price. The result was a foregone conclusion. When a moderator announced that the winning bid for the South Brooklyn project was awarded to the joint venture between the Rhodes Corporation and Sterling Industries, the room erupted in applause. The color drained from Lucas's face. He shot to his feet, pointing a trembling finger at me. Impossible. That's absolutely impossible, he stammered. Ethan, this is your doing, isn't it? I held up my hands in a gesture of innocence. Hey, if you can't handle losing, you shouldn't be playing the game, big guy. Your proposal was full of holes and financially reckless. The city leadership has a brain. What did you expect? Lucas's gaze snapped to Caleb, who flinched as if he'd been struck. It wasn't me. I don't know. The proposal I gave you. He trailed off, realizing he'd just confessed. Lucas's eyes turned murderous. A beautiful drama of best friends turning on each other was about to unfold. As for Chloe, the supposed heroine, she was completely frozen. She looked from the radiant Ava Sterling on the stage to me, relaxed and confident in my seat. Then she looked at the sputtering, furious Lucas beside her. It was as if her entire worldview had just imploded. This wasn't how the story was supposed to go. According to her script, today was supposed to be Lucas's triumphant moment, where he crushed me and Ava. He was supposed to sweep her into his arms, the center of attention, envied by all. But now everything was wrong. Lucas had lost, and he'd lost spectacularly. Ethan, far from being a ruined loser, had joined forces with Ava to reach new heights. And she, the heroine, was now the butt of a citywide joke. Why? How could this happen? Chloe's face grew paler and paler, her body starting to tremble uncontrollably. Something inside her head felt like it was cracking open. A flood of chaotic text fragments and images poured into her mind. Fights the protagonist to the death over a simple, kind-hearted waitress. Ignores his stunningly beautiful and brilliant fiancée to become the female lead's pathetic lapdog. Whoever wants to be that chump can have a part. I'm out. The words were so familiar, yet so alien. They didn't belong to this world, but they were seared into her memory. She snapped her head up and stared at me, her eyes wide with utter disbelief. No, it can't be. He's not Ethan Rhodes. The hopelessly stupid Ethan who had been so obsessed with her was gone. This person was a stranger, an intruder from another world, just like her. No, he was worse, far worse. She had merely been dropped into the world she had written, eager to experience her own story as the heroine. But he seemed to know everything. He knew the plot. He knew everyone's fate. He even knew what she was. A terrifying thought took root in Chloe's mind and began to grow uncontrollably. She wasn't the center of this universe. Her precious protagonist halo was worthless in front of this man. She was the real sideshow clown. A spray of blood erupted from her lips. Her eyes rolled back in her head, and she collapsed backward in her chair. The entire conference room descended into chaos. And I just watched it all unfold, a cold, barely perceptible smile playing on my lips. So, you finally figured it out? Good. The game is just getting started. When Chloe Sullivan woke up, she was in a hospital room. Lucas was by her bedside, his face etched with worry. The moment he saw her eyes open, he grabbed her hand. Chloe, you're finally awake. You scared me to death. The doctor said it was just stress, nothing serious. But Chloe seemed not to hear him. She yanked her hand away. The memories in her head had fully merged. She was Chloe Summers, a third-rate web novelist. The CEO's secret sweetheart was the hit story she'd churned out during a series of all-nighters. Lucas Vance was the cleverly designed hero, pretending to be weaker than he was. Ethan Rhodes was the brain-dead, disposable villain she'd created to move the plot along. She'd been so proud of her work. She'd even fantasized about being the universally adored heroine, fought over by the heirs of two great fortunes. Then, one morning, she woke up as Chloe Sullivan. At first, she was ecstatic. She knew the entire script. All she had to do was follow it. And she could easily win the hero's heart and live happily ever after. She basked in Ethan's mindless adoration and savored the push-and-pull romance with Lucas. Everything was going according to plan, until Ethan changed. He was no longer the lapdog who orbited her. He became smart, calculating, even cruel. He ruthlessly exposed her act and, without a second thought, chose the woman she had written to be the vicious side character, Ava Sterling. Ethan, Chloe whispered his name, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resentment. It's always Ethan. Lucas exploded at the mention of the name. Chloe, are you still thinking about him? Did you forget what he did to us today? He teamed up with Ava to steal my project. He's the reason you collapsed in public. A man like that isn't worthy of your love. Love? Chloe laughed internally. How could she love a fictional character she had created? This wasn't about love. It was about control. She couldn't stand the fact that a character she had written had gone off script. Lucas, Chloe said, sitting up. For the first time, she looked at him with a cold, appraising stare. Do you really want to beat Ethan Rhodes? Lucas was taken aback. Of course I do. Good. Chloe's eyes turned hard and determined. The South Brooklyn project was just the beginning. Next, Ethan and Ava will start a series of aggressive acquisitions, trying to swallow up several of New York's other legacy companies. And that's where we'll find our opening. Drawing on her authorial memory, she began to lay out some of the major business moved from the latter half of her novel, revealing Ethan and Ava's future strategies to Lucas. How do you know all this? Lucas asked, stunned. Don't worry about how I know, Chloe said, a crazed light glinting in her eyes. All you need to know is that I am the only person in the world who can help you defeat Ethan Rhodes. If you listen to me, I guarantee that not only will you get back everything you lost, but you will have Ethan and Ava kneeling at your feet, begging for mercy. Looking at this new, transformed Chloe, Lucas was filled with questions. But the memory of the humiliation Ethan had dealt him was still fresh. He chose to believe her. Okay, Chloe, I'll do whatever you say. A counterattack, personally directed by the author herself, was about to begin. Meanwhile, Ava and I were celebrating our first victory. Vance Corp's stock hit a limit down at the opening bell today, Ava said, swirling a glass of red wine, a faint smile on her lips. I hear Lucas beat his good friend Caleb Mitchell so badly he ended up in the hospital. Let them tear each other apart, I said, unsurprised. However, Ava said, her tone shifting as she looked at me. Chloe's reaction at the conference was strange. It wasn't just about Lucas losing. It was like she'd suffered some kind of profound shock. I smiled but said nothing. I knew. She'd woken up. The author hiding inside Chloe's body had finally realized she was no longer in control of this world. What will she do next? Ava asked. A cornered animal will lash out, I said, taking a sip of wine, my eyes glinting with amusement. An author who knows the future plot will do anything to force the story back on track. She'll tell Lucas everything she knows. Ava's brow furrowed slightly. Doesn't that put us at a major disadvantage? No, I said, shaking my head, a spark of excitement in my eyes. Quite the opposite. An arrogant author and a conceited hero, thinking they hold the script and can predict the future. That's when they're at their most vulnerable. That's when they're easiest to break. I looked at Ava, my voice steady. What they don't know is that I'm not just a reader who's finished the original book. I've read countless fan fictions. I've analyzed 100 different ways the plot could go. She thinks she's playing chess while I'm playing checkers. But the truth is, I'm in orbit, looking down at the whole board. So now, I said, we play their game. We're about to show them what a real paradigm shift looks like. Chloe's spoilers worked like a charm. Following her guidance, Lucas managed to intercept our planned acquisition of a promising green tech startup. In the original novel, that company was a cornerstone of our future business empire. It was a viciously effective move. Suddenly, the business world was buzzing. The great alliance between Rhodes and Sterling wasn't so invincible after all. Faced with the story's true hero, they were finally taking a hit. Lucas had scored a major victory, winning back the trust of Vance Corp's board of directors. He threw a massive victory party, inviting every big name in New York. Of course, he sent invitations to me and Ava as well. The gold leaf card might as well have said, "Come and watch me rub your faces in it." Are we going? Ava asked, tossing the invitation onto the desk. Of course we're going, I laughed. He's practically begging us to slap him. It would be rude not to. At the gala, Lucas was in his element, and Chloe stood beside him like a proud peacock, soaking in the praise. The moment she saw us walk in, she glided over. Ethan, Ava, so glad you could make it. Her face was fixed in a victor smile, but her eyes held a hint of pity. I never thought I'd see the day you two would slip up. That green tech company. I heard you were planning its acquisition for months. Such a shame. Is it? I said, my face a mask of regret. Well, what can you do? We just don't have a fortune teller on our side to guide us. My words were pointed. Chloe's smile faltered for a fraction of a second before she regained her composure. Ethan, it's not too late to change your mind, she whispered, her voice low enough for only the three of us to hear. If you leave Ava and come back to me, I can make sure Lucas stops targeting you. The three of us could. Could what? From a book club? I cut her off. Ms. Sullivan, has writing fiction rotted your brain? Do you really think the world revolves around you? You think because you snagged one company, you've won the war? I'd be more concerned about the fire in your own backyard if I were you. Without another word, I walked past her, toward the buffet. Ava gave me an elegant toast with her champagne flute and turned to network with some of her own contacts, leaving Chloe standing alone, her face fluctuating between shades of red and white. She had no idea what I meant. A fire in his backyard? What could possibly be wrong? Just then, the ballroom doors burst open. A man in a hospital gown with a bandage wrapped around his head stormed in. It was Caleb, fresh from his beat down by Lucas. Lucas Vance, you backstabbing son of a bitch. You're going to burn for this. Caleb screamed, pointing a shaking finger at Lucas. You used me. You used me to get to Ethan. And now that you've won, you think you could just cast me aside? No chance in hell. You think nobody knows where the money for that acquisition came from? It was embezzled. You moved it from an overseas account behind the board's back. You thought you covered your tracks, but I have the proof. Caleb pulled a thick stack of papers from inside his gown and threw them to the floor. Today I'm going to ruin you. The entire ballroom erupted in gasps. The blood drained from Lucas's face. He never imagined Caleb would turn on him like this. Chloe was even more stunned, looking as if she'd been struck by lightning. This wasn't in her book. Caleb was supposed to be pacified by Lucas and become his most loyal attack dog. Why was he biting the hand that fed him? Her head snapped toward me. I was standing by the dessert table, calmly enjoying the show, a small smile on my face. It was him. It had to be him. He changed Caleb's storyline. The hunter becomes the hunted, Ava murmured, appearing at my side with a hint of amusement in her voice. When did you manage to flip Caleb? I didn't, I said, spearing a piece of tiramisu. I just sent someone to visit him in the hospital, to let him know that a man like Lucas Vance is only a friend in hardship, never in success. The moment Lucas won, Caleb became disposable. I also accidentally let slip the account information for the embezzled funds. A selfish snake like Caleb was never going to let Lucas walk away with the prize after he'd been used as cannon fodder. Ava looked at me, her beautiful eyes shining. So you let him win that company on purpose? Of course, I smiled. That startup was a house of cards. All flash on the outside, but drowning in debt. It was a ticking time bomb. I spent all that time setting the stage just so Lucas would happily take that bomb off her hands. And now it's just exploded. I watched as Lucas was swarmed by reporters and furious board members, with a helpless Chloe standing by his side. My smile widened. Ms. Author, you thought you knew the plot? I'm sorry, but from the moment I arrived, I'm the one writing the story now. Lucas Vance's scandal was the biggest news in New York. Vance Corp's stock plummeted, and the company was thrown into chaos. Lucas himself was taken into police custody, under investigation for embezzlement and corporate fraud. His hero, Halo, had been shattered into a million pieces. As his accomplice, Chloe wasn't legally implicated, but her life wasn't much better. She went from being the envied fiancée of a tycoon to a social pariah. She tried to see me, but couldn't even get past the front desk of the Rhodes Corporation building. The whole saga ended in our complete victory. That evening, Ava opened a bottle of 95 Screaming Eagle at her private vineyard upstate to celebrate. Well played, she said, raising her glass. The moonlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows cast a soft glow around her, making her look almost ethereal. You were a great partner in crime, I replied, clinking my glass against hers and draining it. The winery was silent, just the two of us. The atmosphere, fueled by wine and moonlight, began to feel different. Ethan, Ava said, setting down her glass and looking at me seriously. Who are you, really? It was the second time she'd asked me that. The first time, her voice was filled with suspicion. This time, her eyes held more curiosity than judgment. Instead of answering directly, I asked her, who do you want me to be? The idiot who used to chase Chloe Sullivan around and treated you like you were invisible? Or the partner who stands by your side and helps you conquer the world? Ava fell silent. The answer was obvious. But she was a rational person, a businesswoman. She didn't believe someone could change so drastically for no reason. It defied logic. I'm still me, I said, my gaze open and honest. I just went through some things. Saw some people for who they really are. I was blind before, chasing after illusions while a real treasure was right beside me. I don't want to make that mistake again. My eyes lingered on her face, filled with an admiration I didn't try to hide. Ava's heart skipped a beat. She was used to flattery and empty praise, but look so direct and sincere was something she'd never experienced before, especially from a man who was, technically, her fiancé, a man she had once despised. A faint blush rose on her cheeks. To cover her reaction, she took another sip of wine. We're just business partners, she said, reminding me, and perhaps herself. Are we? I smiled, leaning forward slightly, closing the space between us, because it feels to me like our partnership is getting better and better. Ava, are you willing to make another bet with me? Bet on what? Her voice was a little unsteady. Let's bet. I leaned in close, my warm breath brushing against her ear, that we can be more than just the best business partners, that we can also be perfect for each other. Ava froze. She could feel her ears burning. In her entire life, she had never felt so flustered. This man was dangerous. He hadn't said a single word about love, but he was pulling at her heartstrings with devastating precision. He'd framed their potential relationship as a gamble, a challenge. It appealed directly to her competitive, risk-taking nature. She was a businesswoman. She loved high-risk, high-reward investments. And the man in front of her was without a doubt the most intriguing, high-value asset she had ever encountered. What if I lose? She heard herself ask, her voice trembling slightly. If you lose, I said, leaning back with a confident smile, everything the Rhodes family owns is yours. And if you win? If I win? I looked at her, my eyes sparkling. You're mine. Ava's mind was in turmoil. She looked at this man, confident, powerful, mysterious, with just the right amount of roguish charm. He was like a whirlpool, pulling her in, making her want to dive deeper. Okay, she heard herself say, as if in a trance. You're on. The moment the words left her mouth, she knew she had already half lost. But for the first time in a long time, she was perfectly happy with that. After Lucas's downfall and Chloe's disappearance, life became surprisingly peaceful. The bet between me and Ava was proceeding smoothly. Our business empire was expanding at an explosive rate, and our relationship was evolving from a simple partnership into something more. We worked late nights together, sharing takeout in the office. On weekends, we left work behind, going to movies and art galleries like a normal couple. I discovered that beneath the corporate queen exterior, Ava had an adorable side. Her eyes would light up when she saw a painting she loved, and she'd secretly wipe away tears during a sad movie. She wasn't a machine. She was a warm, vibrant woman, and she, in turn, saw a completely different me. Not the spoiled playboy, but a man with a plan, a sense of responsibility, and a knack for telling bad jokes to make her laugh. Our feelings for each other grew quietly in the comfortable space we'd built. Everything was perfect, until an unexpected guest arrived and shattered the peace. We were at a charity gala when a handsome man in a tailored white suit walked directly toward us. Ava, long time no see, he said, his voice dangerously smooth. Ava's brow furrowed the moment she saw him. Julian? When did you get back in the country? Her tone was cold and distant. Julian? I searched my memory. There was no one by that name in the original novel. A hidden character left behind by the author? Just got back, Julian said, his eyes fixed on Ava, completely ignoring my presence. I heard you've been doing well. Found yourself a new helper, I see. His gaze finally landed on me, sharp and hostile. You must be Ethan Rhodes. I've heard so much about you. He extended a hand, a polite smile on his face that didn't reach his icy eyes. I shook it, my own smile just as friendly. Mr. Croft, a pleasure. The moment our hands met, an unspoken battle began. I could feel him increasing the pressure, trying to assert his dominance. I smirked internally and squeezed back, matching his force. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. He clearly hadn't expected a supposed playboy to have a grip like mine. He was the first to let go, his perfect smile still in place. You live up to your reputation, Mr. Rhodes. You flatter me. Ava, Julian said, turning his back on me to gaze lovingly at her. I'm back for good this time. I know your engagement to him is just business. Now that I've reclaimed what's mine, Julian, Ava cut him off coldly. My relationship with Ethan is our business. It has nothing to do with you. And please call me Ava or Ms. Sterling. We're not that close. With that, she took my arm and turned away, not sparing him another glance. Julian was left standing there, the smile frozen on his face. As he watched our retreating figures, his expression curdled into something dark and ugly. Ethan Rhodes, he muttered, a glint of malice in his eyes. We'll see just how long you can hold on to what's mine. I felt Ava's grip on my arm tighten. What's wrong? I asked quietly. Nothing, she said, shaking her head. Just an annoying fly. Childhood sweetheart. I teased. Her expression darkened. Something like that. Our families have known each other for generations. He's always been interested. His family ran into some trouble, and he left the country. I didn't expect him to come back. I understood. Another self-proclaimed protagonist. Only this one, Julian Croft, seemed far more dangerous than Lucas Vance. He was better at hiding his intentions, a snake in grass. Don't worry, I said, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. Whether it's a fly or a tiger, I'll handle it. Ava looked up at me, and the resolve in my eyes seemed to calm her. She nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. I know you will. What I didn't know was that in a dark corner of the ballroom, a woman dressed as a waitress was watching us, her eyes burning with a mixture of hatred and exhilaration. It was Chloe. She looked from me to Julian, a twisted smile spreading across her face. You think you've won, Ethan? You're wrong. The real hero has just arrived. Julian Croft. He's the true final boss of this story. The one I saved for myself. You might have beaten Lucas, but you'll never beat him. The game is starting over. Chloe was right. Julian Croft was 100 times more dangerous than Lucas Vance. Upon his return, he quickly consolidated his family's remaining assets and launched a new investment firm, Genesis Capital, that appeared out of thin air and began to wreak havoc on the New York market. His methods were ruthless, precise, and surgical. Unlike the impulsive Lucas, Julian was a predator who knew how to wait for the perfect moment to strike. Several of our ongoing projects were suddenly hit with coordinated attacks. While he didn't cause any catastrophic damage, he tied us up in knots. This guy is no joke, Ava said in my office, her expression grim. His source of funding is a mystery, and he seems to know every move we're going to make before we make it. It's like he can see the future. I scoffed. He can. He has the author feeding him the script. Chloe may have lost her mind, but her memory of the novel's plot was Julian's most powerful weapon. She was telling him every major business move Ava and I were supposed to make. All Julian had to do was set his traps and wait for us to walk into them. So what do we do now? Ava asked. If he knows all our plans, we're completely exposed. Who said we have to stick to the plan? I leaned back in my chair, tapping my fingers on the desk. He might know our plan A, B, and C. So let's hit him with a plan Z he'll never see coming. Ava's eyes lit up. You mean? We play his game, I said, walking to the panoramic window overlooking the city. Chloe thinks she gave him the official strategy guide. So let's turn that guide into his death warrant. She knows we're planning to acquire that microprocessor company on the west side, right? Then let's make a show of it. Let's make everyone in the world believe we're willing to bet the farm on that company. Ava understood immediately. You're setting a trap for him. Exactly. I turned, a cold smile on my face. Julian is overconfident. He thinks because he has the script, he's invincible. It's time he learned what happens when the script bites back. Over the next few days, Ava and I mobilized all our resources, putting on a spectacular show of going to war with Genesis Capital. We kept driving up the bidding price for the West Side microprocessor company, even selling off some of our non-essential assets to free up capital. All of New York was watching the Battle of the Titans, convinced that Rhodes and Sterling had finally lost their minds. And Julian took the bait. From his perspective, this company was the future core of our empire. Capturing it meant crippling us permanently. Egged on by Chloe, he matched our every move, pouring a reckless amount of capital into the fight. Finally, after a frantic bidding war, Julian managed to win the company from us at an outrageously inflated price. When the news broke, Julian and Chloe celebrated wildly in their office. Ethan Rhodes, Ava Sterling, you've lost. Chloe cackled, looking out the window at our headquarters, tears of joy streaming down her face. Without that company, your future is finished. Let's see you come back from this. Meanwhile, on the top floor of the Rhodes Corporation building, Ava and I were casually sipping champagne. He took it, Ava said, her smile radiant. Yep, I nodded. Time to spring the trap. I made a single phone call. You can start now. The next day, a piece of tech news shocked the world. Massive breakthrough, U.S. Lab announces successful development of quantum processing unit, rendering silicon-based microprocessors obsolete. The global tech industry was turned on its head overnight. The stock prices of every traditional microprocessor company crashed into nothing. The company Julian had spent a fortune to acquire went from being a gold mine to a bottomless pit of debt. Genesis Capital, having sunk all its liquidity into the deal, had its credit lines frozen. Calls from angry banks and panic partners flooded their offices. Julian was in shock. He stormed into his office and grabbed Chloe by the collar, his eyes red with fury. Why? You said this company was their future. How could this happen? Chloe was just as dumbfounded. This wasn't in her script. Quantum computing? What was that? Her trashy CEO romance novel never included anything so complex. I don't know. I really don't know. She whimpered, trembling in fear. You don't know? Julian roared, shoving her to the ground. His eyes were murderous. You useless fool. You've ruined me. He looked out the window at the still-standing Rhodes Corporation tower and finally understood. It had all been a setup, a perfectly tailored trap designed by me and Ava. He thought he was the hunter, but he had been the prey all along. Ethan Rhodes. Julian let out a hollow laugh, his eyes filled with despair. He had lost, more completely and utterly than Lucas Vance ever had. Julian Croft went bankrupt. Genesis Capital became the biggest joke in New York finance. The hidden boss was now just another broke loser, drowning in debt. And Chloe Sullivan finally snapped. She couldn't accept that the world she had created was so thoroughly and repeatedly twisted out of her control. On a dark and stormy night, she used the last of her strength to call me. Her voice was a hoarse, chilling whisper. Ethan, you think you've won? You're wrong. If I can't have what I want, neither can you. I left one final Easter egg in this story, one that will destroy everything. Ava's vineyard estate. Midnight. Let's end this. If you don't come, you'll never see her again. She hung up. A cold dread washed over me. I immediately called Ava, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I knew something was terribly wrong. I floored it, racing toward the vineyard upstate. The estate was eerily silent. The main door was ajar, and the faint, coppery smell of blood hung in the air. I pushed it open and saw a scene that will be burned into my memory for the rest of my life. Ava was lying in a pool of her own blood. A dagger was buried in her stomach, the crimson stain spreading across her white dress. Chloe stood over her, holding a detonator, a crazed smile plastered on her face. Ethan, you came. Look at your precious queen. Not so regal now, is she? My mind went blank. I lunged forward, but Chloe blocked my path. Don't move, she shrieked, holding up the detonator. I've wired this entire place with explosives. I pressed this button, and we all die together. Why are you doing this? I growled, my eyes locked on hers. Why? Chloe burst into laughter, tears streaming from her eyes. Because you all betrayed me. Lucas, Julian, and you. I created you. You were supposed to love me, to revolve around me. But one by one, you all went off script. You all chose that bitch Ava. Why? She's just a side character. Why does she get everything? If this world won't follow my script, then I'll just destroy it, and destroy all of you with it. She looked at me, her eyes gleaming with vengeful glee. I know you love her, Ethan, so I'm going to give you a choice. Either you kill her yourself, right now, and then get on your knees and beg to be my dog, or you can die with her. I looked at Ava, her breathing shallow, then back at the completely unhinged woman in front of me. My heart felt like it was being carved out of my chest. Fine, I heard myself say. My voice was terrifyingly calm. I choose the first option. Chloe froze. Even Ava's eyes widened in disbelief. Slowly, I picked up the dagger from a nearby table, a decorative piece, now a potential weapon. Step by step, I walked toward Ava. My face was a blank mask. "Ethan, no," Ava whispered, reaching a weak hand toward me. I stood over her, looking down at her pale face, at the despair filling her eyes. Then I raised the dagger high. "I'm sorry," I thought, and I brought it plunging down. The dagger never touched Ava. At the last possible second, I twisted my wrist and flung it with all my might. Not at Ava, but at Chloe. It all happened in a flash. Chloe had no time to react. A blur of silver, a sharp, searing pain in her right hand. "Arg," she screamed. The dagger had gone straight through her palm, pinning her hand and the detonator she was holding to the wall behind her. The device slipped from her numb fingers, dangling by its strap. I didn't hesitate. I lunged forward, kicking the detonator into the far corner of the room, then shrugged off my jacket and pressed it hard against Ava's wound. "Ava, stay with me. An ambulance is on the way." My voice trembled with fear. She looked up at me, a faint smile on her pale lips. "I knew. You wouldn't kill me. Don't talk." I cut her off. "Save your strength. You're going to be okay. Ethan." She grabbed my hand, her eyes surprisingly bright. I won a bet." Tears welled in my eyes. "Yeah, you won. You won. So you're not allowed to die. You hear me?" Pinned to the wall, Chloe watched us, her voice a venomous curse. "You liar, Ethan. You'll pay for this. It doesn't matter. The bombs are on a timer. Less than 5 minutes. You're all going to die. You're all going to die with me." I glanced at the clock on the wall. 4 minutes and 30 seconds left. Not enough time. Were we really going to die here? No, I won't let it happen. I had come too far, fought too hard to escape my fate. I had just found Ava. I wasn't going to lose it all now. My mind raced. Bombs, timer, winery. Wait, the winery. Ava had designed this place herself. To protect her priceless collection of wine, she'd built a subterranean vault with the security of a bank. The door was made of reinforced steel alloy, strong enough to withstand almost any blast. "Ava." I shook her gently. The password to the wine cellar. Her consciousness was fading, but she managed to whisper a string of numbers. I scooped her into my arms and ran for the cellar entrance. I punched in the code. The heavy alloy door began to slide open. Just as we slipped inside and the door began to close, I looked back at Chloe's face, twisted with hate and jealousy. "I curse you, Ethan and Ava," she shrieked. "May you never find happiness, in this life or the next." I looked at her, a cold smile touching my lips. "Next time you write a novel," I called out, "try doing some research first. And for God's sake, try to write characters with more than 2 brain cells." The heavy doors sealed shut, cutting off her screams and locking us away from the impending explosion. Boom! A deafening roar shook the entire structure. The ground trembled beneath us. I held Ava tight, shielding her with my body as dust and debris rained down from the cellar ceiling. We were alive. After what felt like an eternity, the shaking stopped. The cellar was pitch black, save for the dim glow of an emergency light. Ava was unconscious in my arms. I quickly checked her wound. The dagger, thankfully, hadn't gone deep enough to hit any vital organs. I found a first aid kit and did my best to bandage her wound and stop the bleeding. Then I pulled out my phone. I had a signal. I called 911 and reported the explosion. Only then did I let myself relax, slumping against the wall. I looked down at Ava's pale but peacefully breathing face and felt a wave of terror wash over me. I had come so close to losing her forever. I leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "You idiot," I whispered. "Don't you ever do something so reckless for me again." The rescue crews arrived, and after hours of work, they finally managed to pry open the cellar door, finding us in the dusty darkness. Ava was rushed to the hospital. As the only other survivor and key witness, I was taken to the police station. I gave them a version of the story that was artistically edited. The official conclusion was that the explosion was the result of a business rivalry that had spiraled into a violent revenge plot. Chloe Sullivan and Julian Croft, the 2 people who had tried to hijack our world, were now just ashes and a footnote in a police report. The storm was finally over. A month later, Ava was discharged from the hospital. I was there to pick her up. She was wearing a simple white dress, standing in the bright sunlight, looking more beautiful than ever. When she saw me, she smiled, a smile that outshone the sun itself. "I'm hungry," she said. "What do you want?" I asked. "Anything." "Okay." I took her hand, our fingers lacing together. "Let's go home. I'll cook for you." The setting sun stretched our shadows long behind us as we walked. Back at my place, I tied on an apron and got to work in the kitchen. Ava leaned against the doorframe, watching me quietly. "Ethan." "Yeah." "I won the bet," she said softly. "So, you're mine now." I turned around, my hands still dusted with flour. I walked over to her, cupped her face in my hands, and kissed her. It was a gentle, tender kiss, full of the relief of survival and the preciousness of a second chance. When we finally broke apart, I looked at her, the love in my eyes overflowing. "No," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm the one who won. I won my entire world.